Welcome to the Vegas Apocalypse Quarantine Theater. It's called Quarantine Theater since most of you, like me, are stuck at home because of the stay-at-home order regarding the coronavirus. Except, of course, for those essential employees who are braving the elements to make sure that the essential services of everything from fuel to food to banking to cars and household repairs. Did I leave anyone out? Anyway, if you're an essential employee, stay safe. America thanks you for your service, and of course, we salute you. And for those of you who are under stay-at-home orders, I hope the stimulus package works in your favor and that unemployment is treating you right without any screw-up. On this episode of Quarantine Theater, I will be looking at two movies that have certainly made an impression on me and that I believe will benefit you. And the two movies I'll be reviewing on this episode are Abigail Haunting and, of course, the notorious Tiger King. That is, of course, if you do have Amazon Prime or Netflix services, or even YouTube for some movies. So today I'm looking at Abigail Haunting, which you can see on Amazon Prime. Abigail Haunting is directed by Las Vegas filmmaker Kelly Schwartz and centers around a young woman named Kate, who is portrayed by Chelsea Jerkowitz, who finds herself in a pretty deadly situation with her boyfriend and flees home, which of course is back to her foster home, which wasn't a bed of roses either, but it's the only place left to go, and beggars can't be choosers. So she returns to find Marge, her foster mother, who is played by Brenda Daly, who has become just as distant to her as she ever was before. Now during this time, she meets two men, a mysterious fellow named Walter, played by Michael Montero, who leaves groceries on the front steps for Marge, and Brian, played by Austin Collazo, who was someone she knew before leaving home, but she wasn't aware that he had a small crush on her. Now, strange things begin to happen. There's a night light designed like a clown that keeps coming on at the most inopportune and spooky times, even though she keeps turning it off. And then there are strange noises that she keeps hearing coming from a shed in the back. Now, I have always held the theory that all haunted house movies are ultimately tales of buyer's remorse when the housing inspector didn't quite give you an honest appraisal of all of the problems that are happening inside the house. But in this case, all these spooky dealings is not just related to the house, which is really a modular home that Brian refers to as a trailer home. Well, she meets Brian later in a bar, and when she goes to the restroom, finds out whatever was haunting her over at the trailer home is still haunting her at the bar. And whatever was happening in that house was so spooky, not even the ghosts wanted to stay there. So Kate finds out from Brian that Marge did have another foster child before she brought Kate along. So Kate confronts Marge with a very honest question. Why didn't you tell me there was someone before me? Did you need the money that bad? Did even the authorities know about this? Did she want the money so bad that she covered it up? Now, anyone who has had any experience with people who have been raised in foster homes, or for that matter, foster group homes, know that foster parents and people who own foster group homes do get kind of a cutback, a hefty amount of money every month per each child that they raise. It's possible that people can really clean up in the foster home racket. So Kate's wise to this and begins her quest to find out just what happened to the child that used to stay there before her. What went on in that shed, and for that matter, is anyone buried out there? The movie is very well paced, and I think those who have either been raised in foster homes or foster group homes might find a lot in this movie that they identify with, and it might even prove triggering to some people. Everyone else will find an interesting story and a twist at the end, which reminds me of a saying that I heard from, of all people, J.R.R. Tolkien, which is, if you fight the enemy using the ring of the enemy, you risk becoming an enemy yourself. And speaking of turning into your own worst enemy, let's take a look at Tiger King, now playing on Netflix. Now, are you aware that according to the World Wildlife Federation, that there are only about 3,890 tigers left in the wild? Now the figure on Tiger King is slightly better at 4,000, with 5,000 to 10,000 tigers in captivity, mainly right here in the United States of America. And the majority of them are being run at zoos that are owned by good old boys trying to impress the ladies. Yep. Considering that one tiger alone can bring in $100,000, many of them do appear to be in this business for the same reason Willie Nelson got into music. He says he got into music because he wanted to pick up girls, and that's what it seems these people are, except of course for our main Tiger King, whose name is Joseph Allen Maldonado Passage, otherwise known as Joe Exotic, aka the Tiger King. And there are a number of colorful characters in this show. For instance, there's one fellow who lives with multiple women that he refers to as his wives or common law wives. Another guy, Jeff Lowe, he's big in the swinger community and he likes to smuggle tigers into hotels in Las Vegas in really cramped suitcases. And of course the title character, Joe Exotic, who has two common law husbands. And considering how these animals are on the road to extinction, this is, of course, the time for activists to step up. However, in this show, our sole activist is Carol Baskin, who runs the Big Cat Rescue. But when you see the cats, see how the cats are treated at her Big Cat Rescues, they're actually treated kind of better at Joe Exotic's. Over at her Big Cat Rescues, they're in cramped cages. Outside of the fact that she's rescuing the tigers from these owners who buy these tigers when they're little cubs and use them to get girls, pose with them and, come on, be my common law wife. Let's go to Vegas and take pictures of tigers. It's amazing what they'll let you smuggle into hotel rooms in Vegas if you tip large enough. Unfortunately, we found that out a few years ago, and that's not too funny. But in addition to deadly weapons, you can smuggle deadly tigers. She operates her facility like a tourist attraction in Tampa, Florida, no different than the other tiger guys in the series. And it also doesn't help that her husband, her former husband, a man named Don Lewis, vanished and has never been discovered yet. And so 5 years later, she had him declared legally dead. Now, that doesn't set well with the Lewis family, who believe that Carol killed her husband, fed him to the tigers, and then deposited the rest of his body in a septic tank on the property. There's hardly a sympathetic character in this entire series. There are colorful characters, I'll give you that. In fact, fans of the writer Carl Hiaasen might notice some similarities between the characters in this show and the characters in a novel he wrote called Stormy Weather, which was set during Hurricane Andrew. And in that novel, there were roadside zoos that got destroyed by Hurricane Andrew. And suddenly, tigers and lions were running loose through the suburbs of Miami, and you would have a suburban housewife opening her door and seeing a panther just running through her backyard. Now, Carol is in Tampa. Joe's tigers are in Oklahoma. There's another guy in South Carolina. And as previously stated, there were some deadly tigers in some of the rooms at the Las Vegas hotels. It's like I said, it seems like you can smuggle anything in these hotels if you tip well enough. Out of all of these characters, hands down, Joe Exotic seems to be the most sympathetic character in the bunch. He does draw the ire of Carol Baskin as she wants to end his industry of misery. This eventually takes a financial toll on Joe, and he starts to act in ways that aren't very rational. He begins to emulate mock assassinations of Carol Baskin on his internet TV show, insults her, and shoots at her effigy. That doesn't help much, and it causes Carol Baskin to start fearing for her life. She and her husband begin to trump up the lawsuits, and of course, Joe does point out the hypocrisy of her criticizing his industry of misery when the tigers that are in her company probably aren't feeling that happy either. Eventually, Joe is taken to court and is found guilty of hiring professional hitmen to take her out. Now, the problem with all these hitmen is they appear to have been recruited from his competition, and perhaps he's just being too embarrassing to them that they just want to take him down and, take his place. They just want to take his zoo over. And so they get somebody to convince him that they can take out Carol Baskin for a mere $3,000. Does that sound like a professional hitman to you? I don't think you can get a professional hit on anyone for $3,000. I think you'd have to pump it up to 100,000, maybe 200,000 more. I don't know. I've never been in that position. But $3,000 fine sounds rather kind of dumb to me. But in any event, the jury bought it, and of course he went to prison, and one of his competitors wound up taking over the zoo. Now, of course, as Joe constantly reminds us, it doesn't help that Carol Baskin might have killed her husband, fed him to the tigers, and deposited his body in the septic tank. But that's a subject for another documentary series that'll be centering around the whereabouts of her missing husband. Now, a word about the directors of this series. This series is directed by Rebecca Shaiklin, the producer of Another World, a serious documentary about the Occupy Wall Street movement, and Eric Good, producer of Racing Extinction, which is about how humans are practically torturing this planet and causing many species to become extinct. These are two serious filmmakers who have the same message in Tiger King, although my only fear about this is that their message is going to get totally lost in this really intriguing but kind of crazy redneck soap opera. Each episode is about 45 to 48 minutes in length. You could probably get through it in about maybe 3 days if you do 2 a day, or 7 days if you just watch 1 a day. And after all, it's not like you're going anywhere. Unless you're an essential worker, you're stuck. Well, this is quarantine theater. The main reason we're in quarantine right now is so that we don't get extinct. Some people might even suggest that nature is getting her revenge on us because of how we've been treating other species like the tigers portrayed in Tiger King. So, 2 movies that I recommend that may save your life. Okay, I just like to say this. I think any of the directors or producers of these movies, they can actually put that on their posters and advertisement. This movie may save your life, because ultimately anything that keeps you at home and from going out there where you're touching things indiscriminately, getting all these germs, and eventually might put yourself at risk for coronavirus, can save your life. So, Abigail Haunting and Tiger King, these 2 movies may save your life. So stay home and stay alive by watching movies. My name is Dwayne Walker, and thank you for watching Vegas Apocalypse Quarantine Theater.